Good afternoon and welcome to the Economies and Neighbourhoods Scrutiny panel. My name is Councillor Harpreet Uppal. I'm the chair of the panel and also a councillor for Ashbrow Ward. So I'm going to go around the committees just so they can introduce themselves. So Councillor Idale.
Good afternoon. My name is Councillor Idle. I represent the Gorka ward. And any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Councillor John Taylor, and I'm a representative from the Kirklees ward.
Councillor Bolt.
Hi, my name is Martin Bolt, and I'm a councillor for Murfield.
Thank you very much. We have received apologies from Councillor Yusra Hussain, and we are also expecting a couple of members to arrive late. So Councillor Gwenlow, and sorry, I forgot to mention Chris. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Chris Friend. I'm a co-optee member of the panel.
Great stuff. Thank you, Chris. So minutes of the previous meeting. So we have minutes from the March meeting and also our last meeting in July. We did receive a question at the time from Councillor Ball about the scrutiny meetings continuing virtually currently for scrutiny, and they're continuing on a virtual basis until September. Since then, we have received some guidance from the head of governance to say we are able to continue on a virtual basis. And I just wanted to make sure we could agree those minutes. So are we able to agree the minutes? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'm happy to move them.
Thank you. And do we have someone to second it?
Yes, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll move on from that. So we're agreeing both the March meetings and the July.
Sorry, I can't agree the March minutes.
You can't agree them, but you can agree the July minutes.
I can agree the July minutes.
July minutes. Yeah. Okay. So we've got Councillor Taylor agreeing the March minutes. I don't know if I can second it because I'm the chair, but Chris, are you able to second the March minutes? Lee, did you want to come in?
I'm just saying you can second them, Chair.
Okay, perfect. I'll second the March minutes. Thank you for that. Interest. Do any councillors have any interest that they want to disclose at this stage? Okay. I will just mention that I'm an Ashbrow councillor, and the Cooper Bridge scheme does impact a part of my ward, which is Oak Road, and I have met with residents at a public meeting at Oak Road as well. So I just wanted to mention that. Councillor Idale?
Yes, it's with regard to the July minutes. A question on what we resolved to do. There's no dates for when we should receive this information. I don't like open comments like this because it could be stuck on a back boiler somewhere and never appear. Is it possible we can have dates for when we will receive this information?
No, I think that's a very fair point, and we will do. And I know there was some data that we asked to be provided to the panel, which I'll be following up on as well. So certainly we can set some dates around that as well, Councillor Idale.
Thank you.
In our recommendations, and thank you, Councillor Ball.
Yeah, thanks. In declaration of interest. Firstly, to point out that the cover report is incorrect, Chair. The cover report says the electoral ward affected is Ashbrow. Anybody with an inkling about the geography of the area knows that the majority of the area affected is Calderdale, but from Kirklees' perspective, it also affects the Murfield ward and the Liversidge and Gummersall ward, of which I'm a councillor, and Murfield Town Council have had a briefing, as indeed of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. So on that, I'll declare that I have had scant briefings on this before, but I've made no firm commitments, and I'm viewing this with an open mind today. But I'd like the electoral wards correcting that they should include the other wards, and therefore that the ward members have not been fully consulted.
Thank you, Councillor Barr. I know the comments that you have made, and in terms of what you've said about being consulted, perhaps one of the officers might want to cover that when we get to that point as well. So thank you for that. So we're going to move on to admission of the public. So the meeting is webcast via YouTube live, so members of the public can watch live on YouTube. And we also have a member of the public in the meeting speaking under deputations. So moving on to deputations, we have received 2 deputations. We'll have 2 people speaking. Firstly, we have Councillor James Homewood. I can't say his name correctly, even though it's my colleague. Councillor James Homewood, you have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes to speak. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and make sure that I have got my eyes on the clock, so I'll give you sufficient time, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning if you need it. So go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. No problem. I'll try to be within the time. So yeah, firstly, thanks for letting me speak at the meeting. And I think firstly, I want to say I think it's really good that this consultation exercise is coming to the Scrutiny Committee. I think one of the things that I really wanted to point out here is that, you know, not just Kirklees, but lots of public bodies and private organisations as well get a lot of criticism for the way that we conduct these types of consultations and not taking into account what people are telling us. So I think it's really important that, particularly when we look at these consultation responses and the amount of concerns that are being raised, it's really important that we scrutinise that and that we really take on board what people are saying. As you kind of pointed to our earlier chair, both of you myself represent Ashbrow Ward, so I am focusing really here on how this scheme at Cooper Bridge A26 affects the Bradley area in my comments here, and just my kind of reading of some of the just my reading of some of the comments that have been into the consultation and things that I wanted to comment on too. So I think firstly the thing that I really want to make clear is that for residents of this part of Bradley, particularly on Oak Road, but also parts of Leeds Road and Bradley Road, the detrimental impact on them on this scheme is going to be pretty significant. And I think, you know, there's very few positive elements for them. And, you know, I do question whether we should have schemes that really do not provide positive impacts for residents in those areas, and that does concern me a lot. I don't think there's much in here that helps to take away from those detrimental impacts. And I will just touch on a few of the particular points that I had now. I think the first concern to me and the main concern is the way that this is going to impact on Oak Road. So I think when you look at the responses and the people that have spoken to me, I think people find it really difficult to understand how the only solution to this issue can be to create essentially a roundabout gyratory, whatever you want to call it, round Oak Road, and that it's not possible to find solutions that use link together the 2 main roads that exist currently and link together currently. And I think we are told through the consultation of the papers that lots of options have been looked at, including how the current kind of link between Bradley Road and Leeds Road can be maintained. But there's no information about that in the reports, and so it's really hard to understand that balance that's being made as to why this scheme is beneficial and how it outweighs those negative impacts. So I really think that we need a lot more understanding of that, and I think the public are struggling to understand how that works and how we're meeting the needs of those residents. The second thing that I wanted to point out, which I'm really concerned about, not just from what I've seen in the plans, but further discussions on it, is it does seem to me that we know that the impact on Oak Road is going to be negative in terms of additional traffic on that road and probably additional HGV as well, traffic as well, unless there's other mitigations put in place. But even then, when you look at the volume of traffic that's going to be apparently using Oak Road, it seems to be predicated on the fact that there's going to be a significant reduction in volume of traffic that's accessing Cooper Bridge up Bradley Road once this scheme's put in place. And I am really concerned that I don't know how we've come to that assessment. I'm told it's through the kind of modelling that we use, but I just find it difficult to understand that if we're putting in place road improvements that speed up journey times, why does that reduce the number of people making journeys via that way? And I know there will be
you've got another minute.
Okay, and I know there will be other road schemes that will be put in place, but I can't see how those are achieved by 2026. So I have real concerns. I think we need to understand how we are so sure that this impact on Oak Road is going to be mitigated. And I think that's particularly the case when you look at the fact that the housing development, the development in Bradley is all at that top end of Bradley Road. And I'm just struggling to understand how we're going to be reducing that traffic onto Oak Road. And just to finish off, Chair, my concerns for that lead to actually what we might end up with is a significant amount of traffic on Oak Road, creating further traffic issues of getting into Oak Road. I note that the report says that there won't be a positive impact on air quality. I'm concerned that it's going to get worse actually for residents on Leeds Road and Oak Road. So I appreciate I'm running out of time, so I'll just finish up there by saying that, yeah, I do have those concerns, and I think before the scheme moves forward in any further way, we need some real analysis and understanding of those points and looking at what other options are available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Homewood. Thanks for that. I'm now going to introduce Angela Howard, who's a member of the public from the Oak Road area. And Angela, can you hear me? So I think IT colleagues are probably just.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Angela. Nice to hear from you. So Angela, we're giving you up to 5 minutes to speak on this item, and I'll give you when you've got 1 minute left. I'll give you a warning. Is that okay?
That's fine. Thank you, Harpreet.
Thank you.
Thanks for allowing me to bring up this issue, but thanks to James, I think he's read my notes actually. He's made a lot of the points that I was going to bring up regarding the increase in volume of traffic that's going to be coming along Oak Road. I'm representing the residents of Oak Road and the Leeds Road part in the vicinity of the park. We'd like you to explain how, none of us can understand how the rerouting of all the traffic along Oak Road towards Bradley Road alleviates the congestion at Cooper Bridge. We just can't make the link. Perhaps somebody can address that for me. We're also very concerned about the reduction in air quality and increased noise pollution, which is bound to be caused by this huge increase in traffic, particularly the heavy goods vehicles that are going to be going up towards the new housing development at the top of Bradley Road. Also, this narrow residential street was never meant to cope with this volume of traffic. It's too narrow. As you know, we have problems at the moment because people are having to park on both sides. So I know if it's a one-way system and only parking allowed on one side, that should make the through traffic easier to manage, but at the moment it's very difficult. A lot of people are worried about access to the park for children, because if it's going to be a lot of heavy traffic, then it's going to be difficult for the children to actually get across safely without any zebra crossing or anything like that. I've had concern from the people who live in the listed building that the consistent rumbling of heavy goods vehicles might disrupt the foundations of their building, which, you know, it's 200 years old, and they've got grave concerns about it. apparently it's part of our local history. It was to do with the Luddites, that it was a pub originally and the Luddites used to go there. So we don't want to lose it. Also, the time saving element, which is down to a couple of minutes, we don't think that's really relevant, because if the traffic lights are situated at the end of Oak Road, Oak Road, Leeds Road Junction, if there's a red light there, you're going to be waiting that length of time before you can actually move on. Also, a red light there is going to cause a backlog of traffic on the lower end of Leeds Road, so we can't see an advantage of having lights there. Also, it's just apart from the air quality, the noise pollution, it's just the disruption and having to take a big detour. If you want to go up Bradley Road, fine, but to get back home, we're having to make a big detour to get back down onto Leeds Road to get back home. And likewise, the residents on Leeds Road, if they're coming from the Cooper Bridge end to get outside their own house, they've got to go all the way up to Brooklands to turn round to come back. So the whole thing is a bit of a nightmare for the residents, and we're trying to see the positives, but unfortunately we can't really find any. Perhaps you can help us out. I think that's about everything. James covered most of the things that we talked about when we had our big meeting in the park, which many of you kindly turned up for, so you've heard it all. Perhaps we can get some solution before too long. Thank you, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Angela. And you did it in 4 minutes, so perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, we appreciate that. Okay, so I thank both of the I thank both James and Angela for speaking there. You speaking directly to the panel, and I'm sure the panel have noted the comments that you have made, and they may also want to, make sure that those points are covered when we get to the item, which is what we're moving on to. Number 6 is public question time. We didn't receive any specific questions from the members of the public. Obviously, I think Angela has raised a couple of questions in a deputation, which members may want to follow up when we get to that item as well. So I'm going to move on to item 7, and so this is the main item, the Cooper Bridge Corridor Improvement Scheme. I'll introduce Keith Bloomfield, who's the Programme Manager for Major Projects. I don't know if you want to say hello now, Keith, and you'll be introducing a video.
Yes, thank you, Cam. Thank you, Chair. So we're going to show you a short video, which is a description of what the scheme is about, and it's by way of a fly-through, with some descriptions as we go along the corridor from Cooper Bridge up to Bradley. So we'd like to show you that. I'm the programme lead the programme manager for the West Yorkshire Transport Fund, of which the available funding for this scheme is coming from. So I have a project manager who can't be with us today. That's Sarah Kearns, but I'll be taking questions afterwards. Thank you.
Our proposed improvements to the Cooper Bridge area aim to reduce congestion and improve journey times for people travelling through the Cooper Bridge and Bradley junctions. This will help improve local air quality and support future housing and jobs growth. Our plans are designed to integrate with other planned interventions in the area, such as the Bradley to Brighouse Greenway and the A62 Smart Corridor, to collectively improve access into Huddersfield town centre and other neighbouring towns such as Brighouse. Our plans will benefit all vehicles, including buses, and also include improved pedestrian and cycling facilities to create a safer environment for the use of more sustainable modes of transport and encourage healthy lifestyles. Let's take a closer look at the detail of our proposals. The current Cooper Bridge junction suffers from significant congestion, particularly during peak periods, with traffic often queuing back to the motorway junction. Even since the pandemic, vehicle numbers have returned to almost the same levels as beforehand. Whilst we know there will be some changes in travel patterns after the pandemic, we expect congestion in the area to remain an issue if we do not make improvements. To create more capacity, we intend to construct a new, larger signal-controlled roundabout, which will have left flow links to reduce the amount of traffic which has to use the roundabout itself. We will improve the signal timings to help improve journey times and local air quality. We have included segregated cycling and pedestrian facilities around the roundabout. On the south-eastern arm of the roundabout from Cooper Bridge Road towards Three Nuns Junction, we have provided a two-way cycling lane. Along the northern section of the roundabout, we have included a one-way cycling lane, and on the south-western arm between Cooper Bridge Road and Wakefield Road, we have provided a short section of shared pedestrian and cycling space. New pedestrian and cycling crossings are proposed to enable safe movement around the junction. We will also include new landscaping and sustainable drainage systems in our design. The details of these are still to be developed and will be presented in more detail at our future consultations before our planning application is submitted. As part of our landscaping design, we will include the dump steeple, which will be relocated nearby so it remains easily accessible to the public. We are also widening Wakefield Road on the approach to the M62 Junction 25 to provide more capacity for traffic travelling to the motorway. Cooper Bridge Road will be widened to provide 2 lanes in each direction between Bradley and Cooper Bridge junctions. This will involve widening the railway, river and canal bridges. Separate cycling and pedestrian facilities will be provided on each side of the road, and a new crossing will be provided on the approach to the Cooper Bridge roundabout. Colne Bridge Road will be widened on the approach to Bradley Junction. This will provide 2 lanes for traffic turning right towards Cooper Bridge and a lane for traffic travelling straight on to Bradley Road. A longer flare will be created for traffic turning left towards Huddersfield. The lanes on Leeds Road from Cooper Bridge towards the junction will be reconfigured to provide 3 lanes at the junction, 1 dedicated left turn lane for traffic travelling onto Colne Bridge Road and 2 lanes for traffic travelling straight on. The right turn movement onto Bradley Road will be banned. Traffic will instead be directed onto Oak Road. New signal timings will be implemented to help improve journey times, and we will use new technology to help control traffic and improve air quality. Improved pedestrian crossings will be provided to improve the pedestrian experience and reduce the time pedestrians are held on traffic islands. New dedicated cycle signals will be provided to help cyclists safely travel through the junction. We will widen Leeds Road between Bradley and Oak Road junctions. This will provide an extra lane to accommodate the traffic travelling from Cooper Bridge onto Bradley Road, which will now be diverted via Oak Road. Existing street parking arrangements will be retained, and new segregated cycling and pedestrian facilities will be provided on the southern side of the road to reduce the conflict between cyclists and parked vehicles. The junction with Oak Road will be changed to signal controlled to allow vehicles travelling from Cooper Bridge to safely turn right into Oak Road and access Bradley Road. New shared pedestrian and cycle crossings will be created at the junction. Oak Road will be changed to a one-way street, new parking bays will be created and segregated cycling and pedestrian facilities will be provided, including a new 2-way cycle path through the park. The recreational ground will also be enhanced. We will resurface the existing road, parking bays and footways along Bradley Road, and provide a new cycle and pedestrian crossing with shared areas to access the crossing.
Okay, I was just giving it 5 seconds because I know they told us before they might need 5 seconds just for the link to reappear on YouTube. So hopefully by now we're back on back live on YouTube. Can I just remind panel members, please, if you want to speak, I'll be asking everyone to use the raise hand function to speak, just so everyone can speak one at a time, so we're not going over. We haven't finished the presentations yet, so I'll come back to you, Martin. I see your hands ready, but I'll come back to you. So
Teaser.
we're going to hear firstly from Councillor McBride and then David Shepherd, and then we'll move to questions. But if everyone can stay muted until we get to that stage. So Councillor McBride.
Chair, I'll just give you a quick resume. This, of course, is a scheme to deal with the movements at Cooper Bridge and their reverberations throughout the network as we modify Cooper Bridge to take account of the presumed increase in traffic. It's all part of providing a means of dealing with traffic seeking to access and egress Bradley and to cope with traffic flows as they will affect the housing developments proposed at Bradley Road. The scheme puts more traffic along Oak Road, but tries to minimise the negative impacts for local residents. And I see this as one of the real difficulties is. So like all schemes, it's a compromise, trying to ease movements overall. I think overall, undoubtedly, there are significant net benefits. I can see particular problems on Oak Road, which I think highways have tried to cope with effectively. I think also we need to listen carefully to the residents of that area where the objections are, and I can understand that. And I think it's part of the function of scrutiny to look and listen to the reactions to a proposal that is coming forward from us as the Highway Authority.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Okay, I'll just bring in David Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm David Shepherd. I'm Strategic Director for Growth and Regeneration at Kirklees Council, and the Cooper Bridge scheme fits within my directorate remit. Councillor McBride has covered most of what I was going to say, to be fair, Chair, and you've seen the scheme in terms of the proposal in the video. But I would remind, obviously, we are at a certain stage of the process, so I'd remind scrutiny members that this is a certain stage of the process as it sets out in the report. We now have the benefit of the consultation that we've just undertaken. You have an overview of the responses from the consultation that's appended to the report. You've also got a fairly comprehensive list of frequently asked questions and the answers, and hopefully scrutiny members can see that officers have put together comprehensive answers to each of the questions that have been asked. A number of them are repeat questions because they're coming from different people who either live near or have interaction with the proposals, but that's fine and right for us to continue to provide those answers. So the information is there, as you can see in terms of the report and the appendices. From here on in, obviously we will take on board, as Councillor McBride says, comments that are made today. It's very helpful in terms of the process. We do want to then move forward with a report to Cabinet in due course, because we want Cabinet to see the preferred scheme with the benefit of the consultation responses and any amendments that are made as a result of that consultation. And then Cabinet will be asked to make a decision with regards to putting the preferred scheme forward to West Yorkshire Combined Authority for their appraisal process, and that's where we look to secure the funding that would deliver this scheme in future. So as well as that, there is obviously a planning process if we do go forward with the preferred scheme, so there are further processes to be undertaken with regards to this, and as you can see in the report that you've had before you, we are some years away from implementing this scheme, so we are at the right stage in order to have this scrutiny now and to discuss with members the information that we have, bearing in mind that we do need to work this scheme up in detail. I do take on board the comments that Councillor Bolt has said, also Councillor Homewood, and also we've had Angela Howard speaking today as well. With regards to Councillor Bolt's comment around Ashbrow, I absolutely understand Councillor Bolt's comments, because this scheme does have wider implications beyond where the physical investment, physical changes are going to be made as a result of the investment. The reason that the report talks about Ashbrow is because that's where obviously the focus of the scheme is, but Councillor Bolt is right that there are implications implications for the neighbouring wards around, which is why we undertook to speak with Councillor Bolt and others with regards to the wider implications. But from my perspective, from an officer perspective, the report is correct to say that it's focused on Ashbrow insofar as the measures that are going to be brought into place. With regards to Councillor Homewood's comments, where I absolutely do understand why he's vocalising some of the resident concerns there with regards to particularly around Oak Road and why there is a need, and hopefully you saw within the video why Oak Road is an important part of this overall proposal. But in short answer to Councillor Homewood's request for an answer as to why that is needed, and also Angela Howard's request as to why that is needed and why that is has an impact elsewhere on the route network, particularly Cooper Bridge, is because it allows for traffic throughput to be maximised along the A62 rather than having traffic intersecting there, and that allows for far more traffic to get through. That allows us with the increased traffic volumes to maintain air quality and not to have any perceived negative impact on air quality, and overall it allows the scheme to deliver a better arrangement for all of the road users, particularly some of the more vulnerable road users such as cyclists and pedestrians, who in the present environment it's a particularly challenging environment for some of those other road users. So as Councillor McBride says, there are compromises, and that's why we have the scheme before us that allows us to present the best option for all of the road users, accepting that motorists are going to be a reality for many years to come, and that we have to address some of the present congestion issues and look forward to what the network is going to need to support in future with to accommodate the future growth arrangements, but at the same time to create a more pleasant environment for all of the road users, and also for those people who live or have businesses in the close environs to these works. So that's as much as I want to say for the time being, Chair, but myself and Keith are available, and other officers are on the call as well to help us as we might with some of the strategic and technical aspects of your discussion.
Thank you very much, David. So I should say we've also got Councillor Firth at the meeting as well, a cabinet member whose portfolio is affected by the scheme, as well as Councillor McBride. And Councillor Lowe, you've just joined us. I know you had something else on, didn't you, before this? So I don't know if you just want to quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I've been to wave off a funeral cortege this lunchtime, and it was, if you can say it was nice, it was very sad, but it was nice. So my apologies for being late, and I'm Councillor Gwen Lowe, and I'm a councillor for Batley West. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Gwen, and Gwen's a member of our panel as well, so thank you very much. Okay, so I can see members have already got their hands up, so just to let you know, Gwen, we're using the raised hand function to ask questions, and if everyone can just ask the questions one at a time as well, please. So I'll start with Councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Chair. And just a correction, Mr. Shepherd said the focus of the scheme was Ashbrow. If officers will bring up the plan of the Cooper Bridge road layout, I know that I've been up there, as you have, met residents, so there's severe concerns about Ashbrow, but the focus of the scheme, the major engineering works, the Cooper Bridge revamp, is not in Ashbrow. It's partially in Liversidge and Gummersall and partially in Murfield. In fact, I believe Kirklees now own one of the houses on Cooper Bridge roundabout, the other being an elector in the Liversidge and Gummersall ward. So Murfield ward is integral to the scheme, it's not ancillary. So my point still stands that this should have been laid out clearer. One of the points that Angela raised, and I think James may have touched on it, and we should have had some information, I think, before us, from planning. We could be wasting huge amounts of public money. This has to go to a planning process when there is, I believe, either grade 2 or grade 1 listed building on Oak Road. If the heritage officers at Kirklees refuse this, recommend refusal at planning because of the negative impact on that listed building. The whole scheme falls, and the risk of the project should have been assessed first. Can you deliver it? And if one of the hurdles and one of the obstacles is that when you go to planning, quite rightly, Kirklees will focus on the listed building element. And we've heard there the history, ironically, going back to the Luddites, which the Dumb Steeple also related to. All that's been, although that's been moved several times. Then you have to do a risk assessment. If you can't deliver it, you need to have what is now not Plan B, but it's Plan C, D, or E from this. I hope scrutiny will be taken seriously, Chair, because on page 56, there's an element here which refers to the ancillary cycle infrastructure, not including horses. Kirklees had a scrutiny review about the Greenway network when we first started. And the recommendation was that we would focus on former rail corridors first and on tri-usage, walking, cycling and horse riding. To capitulate for the Canal and Rivers Trust negates that element and also the wider West Yorkshire active travel element that we're looking at. There's lots of things in here, and I would say that one of the key things that we should be asking for scrutiny is, in the summary on the start, there are 5 elements, the strategic aims of the scheme. For us as scrutiny and for our residents, and I would hope for Cabinet, what are the measurable outcomes so that we can tell whether this £70-odd million scheme is a success, because you have to come back and appraise it. And we also have to, I haven't seen anything in here that says that Cabinet and West Yorkshire are committed to reducing car and motor vehicle usage. So how does this tie in with that aim? And Peter will correct me. I think is it a 2,000% decrease in car usage that you've committed to, Peter? So that should be factored in, that new schemes should be tied in. That is a significant aim that the council has, and everything should be tied to doing that for it. With regards to the consultation, yeah, we're told that 367 surveys, etc. What's that as a percentage of those sent out? And has somebody said that the response there is robust enough? I know when we've done surveys at town council level, the people that have produced them have then given us an assessment about whether it's robust, and if it was multiplied, would it be the same? I'd like to thank James Homewood for coming along, Chair. The comments that he made about the significant detrimental impact, I think we have to take seriously. Not only is James a ward member for the area, but for the benefit of the public and everything, James is the Kirklees district spokesman for the Combined Authority. He chairs West Yorkshire Combined Authority's district consultation panel. So he is the voice of West Yorkshire at Kirklees. And when that voice is saying that this has a significant detrimental impact, we have to hear that voice and we have to take it into consideration. We're looking here, it's portraying the positives about what used to be called cost benefit ratio. It's now BCR. But we're told that those costs are still not certain yet. The final cost is variable and will not be known until the contracts are procured. But what we do know, Chair, is that we've already lost at least £500,000, which could have gone towards this scheme, because Kirklees capitulated to the developers of Murfield 25 and didn't make them pay the full levy for transport infrastructure, which was £500,000, because they argued that this massive blot on the landscape in Murfield wouldn't be economically viable. Well, it's strange that the houses are being sold, the industrial unit, or one of them is occupied, and the industrial area has been sold on. So I would say it's very viable if people are buying it. So we need to look at that. We still can't assess this in terms of empirical evidence. Improved journey times. In 2004, Kirklees produced the Cooper Bridge gyratory scheme. Robert will remember it was his group that brought that forward at the time. And they kindly brought forward plans that showed for each leg of the junction what the journey time was now and what the journey time would be when they'd spent £15 million in 2004. And it was negative. We ended up, it took us longer to get through when we spent the money in, so the project was capped. We need to see that on every leg here. Yeah, if we're coming through, are there any detrimental effects? Let's have a look at it. There's reference to active travel and cycling. And
Councillor Ball, I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt you, I just want to give them an opportunity to perhaps respond to the questions without sort of forgetting
with
everything
respect,
that you
the officers flew through their proposals and we're asked to jot things down.
I'm not saying you can't ask questions. I'm just mindful that you've asked quite a lot of different ones, and I'm just wondering.
There's a lot to ask on this, Chair. Yeah.
Is it worth pausing at this point so you can get some answers?
I'll pause then.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Just so we can get responses. So David, Peter, Keith. I don't know who wants to come in on some of the points that were raised there. I think there's obviously something around. Peter, do you want to come back on the point around the cabinet and the measurable outcomes?
No, I don't think that's relevant.
Okay.
The technicalities are matters for officers who can answer properly. Many of the points Martin makes, I think, some justification, but you could apply the principles, the question, to virtually any scheme in the West Yorkshire Transport Plan at a generalised level. And obviously, those same issues have got to be resolved with regard to each project. And I do believe this one overall is resolving problem. There are localised areas of difficulty, there's no doubt, and it is a compromise. And I think we've got to seek to try and resolve some of those local difficulties. Overall, there is no doubt of the overall benefit of the scheme.
Okay, David, do you want to come back on some of the points there from Martin?
I can do, yes, and also Keith Bloomfield will be able to do so as well. In terms of the point around public money, Councillor Bolt is right. It does cost a fair amount in order to develop a proposal such as this one, to undertake the necessary consultation, to adapt the scheme as we go along, and that's right and proper in order to do that. And there are risks as well in progressing schemes such as this one, hence why we go to such an extent to ensure that we have the best possible proposal before we present that both to Cabinet and then potentially through to the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. We cannot avoid risks with schemes like this one, including risks to public money, but we do look to mitigate them. Certainly in terms of planning risks, we are looking to address most of those by developing an appropriately robust scheme before there is a submission for a planning application on this scheme. And you would expect that of any major transport scheme that's coming and being promoted by Kirklees Council. And certainly that would be an expectation of the funder of the scheme, West Yorkshire Combined Authority, through their transport fund. The heritage aspects of the scheme, as Councillor Bolt has noted there, have been assessed and will continue to be assessed as we know further detail about this scheme. And clearly we will be liaising with our own internal heritage experts before we take forward the scheme. We wouldn't indeed take forward a scheme that we expected to fall at the first hurdle. So I think Councillor Bolt is right there, but you could reasonably expect officers to have ensured that that we don't promote a scheme that's going to fail in terms of heritage grounds. There may well be some comments, as always there are, from different consultees around the authority, and that's what we would expect as we develop any planning proposal for a scheme of this nature. In terms of active travel, I can't help but agree with Councillor Bolt that is a feature of this scheme, and it has to be a continuing feature of all schemes brought forward to ensure that we meet with the council's stated aims with regards to active travel, but also the wider aims of promoting healthier lifestyles, as well as addressing some of the climate concerns that Kirklees Council has been very clear in terms of its stance. That's why you see the features of active travel that are are instrumental to this scheme, and indeed some of the features that do result in some of the compromises that I talked about before, which is why you can't have turns, either left turns or right turns onto Bradley Road, because it puts in danger the cyclists and other and pedestrian users who would be using that road junction, particularly the cyclists. So there are compromises that are a direct result of trying to accommodate other road users, which are a direct response to the council's stated aims around addressing some of the climate concerns, as well as promoting healthier lifestyles. We can't do that all with one scheme. We do that with a range of schemes as we start to move forward, and people's behaviours change in time. I think I, along with Councillor Bolt, would expect people's behaviours to change, and they will move away from car travel, but that's not happening right now. There is a projected need, and indeed our modelling has demonstrated that, and all the survey work that we've done, and you can see that in the papers that you have before you, demonstrates that people are expecting to continue to use the road carriageways in the volumes that they have at the present time. Indeed, it's expected to rise over the coming years, as has been set out, and we need to ensure that we have a realistic solution that accommodates safely all the users of this particular highways network, as well as ensuring that people who live close by the scheme and have businesses close by aren't detrimentally affected. And in terms of consultation as to whether or not this is a representative sample, I believe in the papers it says 2,000 leaflets were sent out, and we've had 300 over 300 responses, detailed responses to that consultation. That's certainly statistically significant. I appreciate there are many thousands of people who pass through this on a daily basis that we aren't getting responses from necessarily, but it's very difficult, as I'm sure the panel members will appreciate, to get responses in that nature. We have invited people to respond to us. We will continue to invite people to respond at different stages as this scheme progresses, so that we build up a picture of the different interests. As I've already mentioned, we know that people within the surrounding area are interested, and they make up the bulk of the responses that we've received to date. But we also need to understand the users who pass through the various junctions and elements of this road network, and that's something that we will continue to try to take on board. So hopefully that gives you a rounded answer, and if you want specifics, I know Keith Bloomfield is more than happy to answer in terms of the specifics of Councillor Bolt's questions.
Keith, I can see you've got your hand up, and then I'll try and bring in some of the other members as well. Keith.
Yeah, Councillor Bolt asked a specific question, I think, on the objectives. The objectives are listed within the pack that we've sent out, but relieving congestion, improve journey times for all vehicles, improve road safety, improve the facilities for cyclists and pedestrians, support the improvement of air quality, and support the local economy and housing growth, in particular the specific housing allocation at Bradley. So those are the objectives of the scheme that we're trying to meet. In terms of finance, the available finance is 69.3 million. That's in the West Yorkshire Transport Fund. That's been available since 2013. There's been no inflationary added to that, so that's what we're dealing with at this moment in time. At this moment in time, we're not in detailed design, and so we've got a series of unknowns when you're dealing with Network Rail, which we are liaising with Network Rail, the Canal Bridge, and the locality that we're building in. There's a series of unknowns, but we have got risk contingency and what we call optimum bias built into the into the overall estimate, which will take into consideration those unknowns. As the detailed design goes forward, we get those unknowns become known, and then the costs go down in terms of what we'd actually know in front of us. So at this moment in time, 69.3 million is the budget. At this moment in time, we are forecasting that the scheme output and outcomes will be around about 75 million pounds, and the combined authority is aware of that, and that will form the basis of our business case in terms of the outline business case. He also asked about the travel time benefits, and also the member of the public who was on earlier asked about, you know, a minute to each vehicle is not significant. When we talk about travel time benefits and travel time savings, it's actually then multiplied by the number of vehicles within the modelled period, which is 2041. It's the amount of vehicles that are on the road at that time. So it's 1 minute for each vehicle within the peak travel time period. So many thousands of vehicles per day multiplied by weeks, months, and then years. And then the scale of consultation, as David said, 2,000 leaflets were sent out. We also had VMS signs, variable message signs, on each of the corridors into the junction to try to pick up those commuters. We also put social media out there. We also run Facebook campaigns, and we also had an online video event where the members of the public could dial in and ask questions. So I believe that consultation was as extensive as it could have been, and 367 is a good representation of those we try to reach. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to bring in some of the other members, and then we can come back and take a second round of questions if that's okay. So, Councillor Iredale.
Good afternoon. If everyone can hear me, I feel very sorry for the people of Oak Road, because our members have used and people who've been here have talked about overall compromise, and unfortunately, overall, of course, so many people travel on that road. It's bound to be a benefit to the general people. But the trouble with compromise is that somebody has to lose, and the people who are losing appear to be the Oak Road residents. Can I ask about the air quality? Can you hear me now? Yep. The air quality on Oak Road, the pedestrian usage going through the park and to local schools, the monitoring of air quality and safety around Oak Avenue, both what it is now, so we've got something to compare it against, and what it will be in the future. Because it would appear that, depending on the phrase you want to use, Oak Avenue appear to be either the sacrificial lambs, and you start talking about making omelettes. And unfortunately, if there are winners, and I feel that a lot of the traffic that goes through on this junction and road will be the winners. The losers will unfortunately be areas like Oak Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Bring in Keith or David on that point.
If I can just very quickly answer and then pass over to Keith, with regard, just to clarify, with regards to Councillor Iredale's comments around my use of words like compromise, I was using that in the context of the compromise being the vehicle users who were being impeded from making particular turns, whether they be left turns or right turns into Bradley Road, as the particular example I was referring to. I think Councillor Iredale is correct in saying that it wouldn't be appropriate to use those words with regards to residents on Oak Road, because what we want to ensure is that we create a quality of environment on Oak Road, resulting from some of the changes there that ensures that residents can continue to live within a pleasant environment, and that the changes that come about as a result of reconfiguration of the road layout, that we address some of the inevitable issues that are created as a result of that. And as the video showed, there are a number of proposals that officers are looking at the present time to improve, whether that's the parking arrangements, the cycling arrangements, the throughput of traffic, the safety arrangements from exiting from Oak Road. There are a whole range of issues that are currently being looked at to ensure that the final scheme that comes forward addresses the issues in those areas. So I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't using the word compromise with regards to I think where Councillor Iredale's concerns were, and Keith will advise in terms of the air quality aspects and the other technical aspects that respond to Councillor Iredale's concerns.
Thank you. Yeah,
go ahead.
Again, in the information pack that we've sent out, quite a detailed information pack on page 29 of that document does detail what we call a non-technical summary of the use and the reasons why we're wanting to use Oak Road to displace the right turn from Leeds Road Bradley onto Oak Road. But I'm happy to answer specific questions on that or clarifications on that if members so wish. I think I'll probably leave it there actually, because I can answer specific questions in relation to that as they come forward actually. So I think questions have been asked from the member of the public, which is about the amount of flow on Oak Road. I'm happy to take that, but if you don't mind, would it be better if I answered the questions or try to summarise Oak Road and the answer to Oak Road in one discussion, as it were?
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Sorry, Chair, could I ask? I've just looked on page 29, and that's the title for the report. The report then, the non-technical summary talks about Network Rail and everything. Is there something specifically about Oak Road? Because page 29 is just a title page, Keith.
Yes, if you read further down, sorry, if you read further down on page 33, then there's a relevance to Oak Road. That's the start of the non-technical summary, Martin. So
thanks.
Page 29 is the start of the report. Oak Road specifically is mentioned on page 33.
Thanks for that clarity.
No problem.
Okay. All right. So, John, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks both to the residents and Councillor Homewood for coming and making representations to us and to the officers for their input today. I have a number of questions, and I'm going to start with a bit of a left field one, if I may. And that is, we're told that we've looked at all options and this is the best solution. Have we looked at flyovers as an option? As a specific question, because that would avoid a lot of the problems that we're having with this. And is a technical solution, but everything I've seen about sort of Cooper Bridge improvements over the years, there's never been any mention of the possibility of using flyovers as a solution to traffic problems. And I'm just wondering where that is, when that option was looked at, and what that would have done to the proposals, because it does seem to me, as a number of other people have said already, that yes, we need to do something here undoubtedly, but we need to try and do something that has the least impact on the local residents, and this does feel to have a significant impact on local residents. And I just wonder whether looking at a different technical solution, a left field one admittedly, because they don't seem to be very popular these days, but would be something that would perhaps mitigate some of those problems. My second question, and I think possibly Keith may in part have answered some of this, was the initial video talked about, the volumes of traffic, etc., but didn't seem to factor in the fact that we have two very significant housing growth areas that would need to access this junction, being Riverside and the Bradley, and that will undoubtedly have an impact on the traffic volumes. But I think Keith, and maybe I think when you were talking about 2041, I'm assuming that those calculations have built into it the fact that these houses will have been built out by that point in time. And my third question is just, how much have we actually spent so far? If that's not a daft question, in terms of development and consultation, etc., because we hear all these numbers flying around, and I just like, for my own satisfaction, just to understand how much has been spent to date on getting to the stage that we're at, if I may. So I'll just leave it initially at those three questions, if I may. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Keith or David?
terms of the flyover, that's quite an interesting proposal, Councillor Taylor. I do know that we've looked at flyovers in the vicinity of Cooper Bridge because the geometric consideration at Cooper Bridge allows for that type of intervention. So you've got Wayfield Road on a hill, you've got the other roads coming from Dewsbury and Leeds on a hill. So it makes that connection quite easy because you've got the gradients to get there. However, the impact in terms of the Kirklees estate will be quite great there in terms of the concrete infrastructure that you would have to include at Cooper Bridge, and also the sheer cost of that is huge. So yes, we're going to come up against heritage and conservation type issues. The woodland will come back into play in terms of the impact on the ancient woodland as well. So for many reasons, not excluding cost, a flyover wasn't considered. Have we considered any other alternative things? Yes, we've considered large roundabouts, smaller roundabouts, gyratories. Have we considered anything at Bradley? I don't think appropriate for a flyover at Bradley in terms of the conurbation around there and the housing. It will look and feel a very, very harsh environment if we think about a gyratory or a flyover there. But what we have considered is a large roundabout. The large roundabout that we would require at Bradley to give us the capacity required to maximise the capacity at Bradley and also to match the capacity at Cooper Bridge would mean that we'd have to take substantial property down at Bradley. So we have looked at the many proposals and we've discounted them. In terms of housing growth, yes, you're quite right. In 2041, the model takes into consideration all future developments that will take place, not only in the local plan, but outside of that. So such as Dewsbury Riverside is in there in terms of the housing build out in 2041, and also Bradley. Not only that, though, it also considers all other schemes that are in programme that will be developed. They'll be as part of the network going forward for the future. So, for instance, the A62 Smart Corridor, which is from Fitzwilliam into Huddersfield Ring Road, 2 kilometres of the A62 as you approach the town centre. That's included in the 2041 model because it's assumed to have been built. And then also about the I think there was a third question, but I can't remember what it was. Can you remind me, please?
Yes. How much have we spent so far?
How much have we spent so far? So the way this works is that we get a sum of money that we bid for at some activity schedules. So we've got some development monies to take us to what we call outline business case. And that sum of money that was awarded from the combined authority to get us to outline business case was just less than £1 million. And that's what we're working to at this next moment in time.
Yeah. I suppose that doesn't answer my question, though, does it? That's how much we've been given to get to outline business case. My question was how much have we spent? They're two different things.
We have spent slightly in excess of the combined authority allocation. I can't give you those figures at this moment in time, but we have spent in excess of £1 million, but not substantially in excess of that, developing this scheme. One must be reminded that this is a £70 million scheme. You'd expect, as a rough guide, 10% of that to be development costs as we go through to delivery and construction.
I'm not questioning the amount. I'm just asking the simple questions. I'm not making any comment on those questions. I would ask, though, that the panel be provided with the correct amount subsequently. I don't think that's unreasonable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and I think that's a fair point. So we will ask for that amount to be provided later on. Okay, I'm just going to check with Councillor Law if you want to ask a question, or Chris Friend, and then I can bring in the others again.
Thanks, Harpreet. No, can I just thank officers? Like I apologise for coming in late, so I didn't catch the beginning of it.
Yeah.
But just thanks, officers, for this presentation. It's a biggie, isn't it? It's a real biggie, and I do think it's important that, again, I apologise, I missed James Homewood speaking, but that obviously local residents, that their thoughts and concerns are taken on board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris, I just wanted to check if you wanted to ask anything.
Yeah, I've got a few questions, Harpreet, if I may.
Of course.
Just to qualify, I'm nowhere near this development. I'm right over the other side of Huddersfield. I'm Bolston Moor, so I'm not partisan on this at all. I'm just looking at this objectively. My big concern over these big road schemes is do people really understand the climate issues? Because we're still going to get a huge amount of pollution here, and all we're doing really is encouraging it. Looking at the report, I just feel there are too many vague statements and not enough metrics about this improved air quality. If you look at section 3.3, it says, enabling HGV and public transport to be prioritised, further supporting improved air quality. How much? What's going to be the difference by prioritising them? And indeed, how are you actually going to prioritise HGVs? Are they going to get a special lane? I didn't see anything about that in the report. So I don't understand how they're getting prioritised. Is all they're going to be doing is queuing with the rest of the traffic down Oak Road. Then in frequently asked questions, number 44, it says it's going to move the pollution further away from the properties, helping reduce the concentration at these properties. Pollution doesn't sit in one little location. If you've got a road, it spreads across the whole road. And if you've got a lot of traffic there, especially idling traffic, for instance, turning right off that main road, you're going to get more pollution. How can you come up with a statement that it's going to be reduced? Again, are there any metrics on this? And then frequently asked question 65, it says the central line will be moved 3.5 metres further away when somebody's asking a question about the pollution and that. Well, the road's not going to be increased in width at that point in Leeds Road, is it? It's just have an extra lane in the middle. But even so, pollution's still just going to sit there. Then when I look at the benefit cost ratio, over what period is this being measured? It talks about prior to the table saying over 60 years. I mean, 60 years is a huge amount of time if that's what the model's being developed over. Surely we should have checkpoints like, let's say, in 10 years we'll achieve this, in 20 years we'll achieve this. It just worries me that there are, all these statements are quite vague and they're very long term. So if you're looking at approving a big program like this, where are these benefits coming from? Who's going to benefit? At the moment, it looks to me like a lot of them are commuters who have nothing to do with Kirklees. Thank goodness that some of the money is coming from the wider program. But I'm just worried that this report, if I was a resident, I'd be up in arms as well about this, because it's not giving me metrics to be comfortable with. If we can get answers to some of those questions, I'll be much happier with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Can I check who wants to come back on that one?
I'm quite happy to answer on those. Again, I can understand Mr. Friend's comments there. I go back to what I said at the beginning, that we are at a stage in the process here, and there is a long way to go with developing this proposal as is set out in the report. So a number of the questions that Mr. Friend asked there in terms of exacting answers, well, you get those when you get to the detail of the scheme that's put in front of the planning committee in order to approve that, because we need to arrive in the first instance at a preferred scheme. Notwithstanding that, I do contest that there are vague answers throughout. I think what we've, as I've said before, there are clear answers to all of the questions that have been put to us. I appreciate where some people may disagree with the answers, and I do note that Mr. Friend obviously started off his contributions there, stating that he has climate concerns, and those are overriding some of his comments and concerns that he's put forward, and I absolutely understand that, which is why we are trying to address longer-term climate impact with schemes such as the Cooper Bridge scheme that comes forward. However, I would contest that they are that the statements within the report are all vague. They certainly aren't. And and also the assurance that we've given you today as in terms of your scrutiny role, that this is part of a wider and more exacting process in terms of drilling down into the detail in all cases. In terms of the pollution control and monitoring, air quality management areas have a very exacting arrangements with regards to recording of particulates in air pollution. So that is something where clearly we will be monitoring the data over time to see what happens. We have modelled that as part of the transport modelling, which is again is set out within the report, and you will have seen that, and we have to base our assessments of that overall there won't be a negligible impact, a negative impact, sorry, in terms of air quality as a result of this scheme. We have to base that on the data that's available to us at the present time and what we expect in terms of traffic flows in the future. So there is some quite detailed modelling that has been undertaken in order to arrive at those estimations, and you would expect that when we go through the further stages of this process, whether that be a planning application or whether that prior to that be the applying for the funding and going through the appraisal arrangements with West Yorkshire Combined Authority, that there will be an expectation that we will be able to provide answers with regards to the assumptions that we have made with on our modelling. So I think that they're fair comments in the main that Mr. Friend has made there, but I disagree that this report is vague. I think this report is as detailed as it can be at this stage, and I think officers have demonstrated their willingness to continue to work with a number of interested parties in order to drill down into the detail as the scheme progresses.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Bolt.
Yeah, thanks. Moving to some points that were raised when we met at Oak Road. Could officers bring up so that everybody can see, bring up the picture, the graphical representation of Oak Road, please, Chair, so that we can see when I'm talking?
Yeah, I think that should be fine. I think Keith's got a picture of the scheme. I don't know if you're able to do that at this stage, Keith.
I was hoping one of my IT colleagues will be able to share it as part of the pack.
Sorry. I don't know if IT is able to pull that up at the moment or not.
Sorry, Kyle.
We're just checking that, Chair, so hopefully it will.
Okay, thank you.
No, there was a picture, Chair, that showed Oak Road with the park on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I think they're trying to pop it up.
Okay.
So this, can you see it, Martin?
Yeah, so it was another picture which gave a better graphical representation of what I'm going to what I want to question about.
Councillor Bolt, were you talking about the one from the video?
It could have, yeah. There's a. It was.
I think that wasn't it. Yeah.
It was a still within the video of Oak Road with the cycle lane on the right-hand side.
It might be a bit more difficult to pull that up.
Well, I'll start, Chair, and because again, for the benefit of the panel and the public, one of the things I was asked when I came to Oak Road was, "You're a cyclist. What do you think about this scheme that they're going to put in?" And we should remind people that there are key criteria now which are enshrined and all schemes have to abide by. That they are coherent, direct, safe, comfortable and attractive. And if highway schemes do not meet what's now called LTN 120 and other government directives, they could have the funding pulled. For Oak Road and for several other aspects of this, what we see as a cyclist is I won't be using those schemes, Chair, because to come onto Oak Road and access the cycle facility, which will be losing part of that parkland to create it, you move across to the right-hand side of the road for maybe 100 yards of Oak Road. And then if I'm going up Bradley Road to Fixby or anything, I have to leave the park at Oak Road and go across the flow of traffic to carry on my journey. That certainly isn't coherent, direct, safe, comfortable or attractive to me. Similar, we had a representation of the A62 showing a two-way cycle lane down the bottom of the screen here, near what many of us will know of Marston's Chicken. And again, the thing that struck me when I saw that was, if that's the objective, to show cyclists how to, there we go, thank you. So somebody's come up Leeds Road or down Leeds Road, whichever, and they're directed onto the cycle lane. So as I say, you cross the flow of traffic here to where you can see those cyclists. Nice lycra-clad cyclists, not very good for the pursuing the commuter image. But then when they get to the other end, Chair, as you know, to go to Fixby, to go to the school up the road, or to go to the new housing development that's going to be up there, you then have to come across the flow of traffic. And I didn't see any cycle facilities, so there's no signalised crossing. So again, it's breaking the journey. It's not a continuous cycle journey. And the same will be on Leeds Road, that if someone is going down Leeds Road back towards Murfield and they get to Combe Bridge, traffic lights, you either have to swing across onto the main road or make a crossing of Combe Bridge Road and others. And I think a cyclist said in one of the sessions there are 11 crossing points. So it takes longer to cross on the cycle facilities. Your journey is extended and you're more at risk than staying on the road. And again, it brings into point that in developing modern cycle infrastructure, what's the maintenance? Are Kirklees committing to regular maintenance, both during normal times of sweeping, because the shared use facility at Cooper Bridge isn't maintained at the moment, and I think I'm on my third or fourth chief executive that I've raised that with, and it's never getting done. And in winter, you can't rely on rock salt. That's what happened with the West Yorkshire Superhighway. They had to buy a special machine to spray de-icer down. And again, the point that I've raised before is people coming from North Kirklees. You've got as you're coming from Cooper Bridge towards Combe Bridge on the right-hand side, you've got employment facilities down Lower Quarry Road, you've got housing and other things. For a cyclist to get across the A62 on a widened A62 with improved flow is not coherent, direct, safe, comfortable, nor attractive. In fact, it's far more dangerous than what it is now because you're speeding the traffic up. We've not seen much evidence of how the houses we're told that it links with the Bradley Course housing. The previous scheme that we saw obviously had a direct link to that. There was a spur road going off the 2018 plans directly into housing. What we're assuming here is that housing from Bradley is going to come down Bradley Road, Chair. And does the inclusion of housing growth that we've heard about also take into account, as we should do with a duty to cooperate, that Calderdale are putting the majority of their local plan at their side of the M62. So the increase in traffic will be significant through the junction on this way. One of the plans that we saw showed an increase in capacity of 2 lanes going towards junction 25 of the M62, which is all well and good. But anybody, if you come off the M62 now and come towards Cooper Bridge, you'll find from 2 o'clock the traffic is backing up towards the M62. So there seemed to be only a single lane coming off the motorway back towards Kirklees. So there's no improvement to the people who are stuck every day in that traffic from Cooper Bridge. We're not seeing that getting traffic off the motorway there. So that's another issue. Obviously, we must be mindful of protecting our businesses. I'll declare an interest. I like a nice chicken and chips from Marston's with the next person. But what we're seeing here is that business is going to have probably half of its car park taken away. We've had no information, so we're in ignorance of that, Chair. If there's a deal being done for Marston's to relocate them and give them a better place, because again, putting a shared use cycle facility on the front of there just means you've got more room for people to park. And it means that when I go out and meet officers on site, they shrug the shoulders and go, well, we've provided the facility if people park in it, it's up to the police to keep them off. No, you're designing something. Let's look at that. Let's look at designing and improving for our businesses. If we're going to improve the road past them, you know, Marston's need to have a positive benefit, as James was saying at the start. I think at the moment, significant detrimental impact on a local business that's over 30 years old that we need to see. Councillor Taylor had asked about flyovers. The three options in 2018, John, had a massive flyover from one side of the valley to the other. And I went around several of those public consultations, and there was a chap there who was a highways engineer, he was a civil engineer, and he said then, why aren't we going directly from near junction 25? And again, as those who know, when you come off the motorway, you've got a swathe of land before you get to the entrance of the Kirklees estate. It used to be a car park, but they closed it off, where you could put that flyover direct onto the other side by the Bradley Tip. Yeah, you're not affecting ancient woodland there. That'd show you the link to the Bradley housing, because that's where the road was going to go originally, Chair, if you remember. And the beauty about having adopted something like that would be the new road could have been constructed in the majority without a 2-year disruption on the existing highway network, which we see now. What we're going to see, we've got at least 2 years here where this roundabout is going to have a significant detrimental impact on journeys in Kirklees, both for business, leisure, you know, accessing the stadium and anything that goes on there, which the other option would have had that facility to do without disruption. And I think that's one. I don't know if the officers have, and we are again within ignorance because they've discounted things without us being able to say, well, yes, that would have been a good one, because that would seem to the man in the street, if it accessed Bradley directly, so it was taking those hundreds of houses off Bradley Road, if it was building a scheme without causing disruption while you were building it, then to the public that have thought, well, yes, you're doing it right. It's joined up thinking. And that brings me to a question to officers, Chair, joined up thinking. Councils are often criticised that they resurface a road and somebody comes along and digs it up shortly after. And it's bad enough when it's the utilities. But when it's the same council that's thinking about doing that, I think we have to have a look. Because if I remember correctly, after many years of protesting as I said, chief executives of Kirklees and Calderdale about the condition of the road, it's due for what's called a capital reconstruction, a major road build between Cooper Bridge and the River Calder, including rectifying some drainage problems that I believe a nearby business caused on Network Rail land. But that cap recon will have hardly have set, it won't, in real terms, probably a multi-million-pound scheme will not have been on the ground too long before we're talking about coming and digging it back up to widen the road under the same railway bridge for this scheme. So what's the cost of that cap recon, and how long is there between one scheme finishing and another starting? Because the public will be asking those questions about why you're spending money tarmacking a road that you're going to be digging up in a very short space of time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. I see we can take down the presentation now. Thank you very much. And I will just go back to David or Keith on those points if there's any comments.
Yeah, I can pick those up, Chair. Mm-hmm. Councillor Bolt asks a number of questions. LTN 120, yeah, I'm fully aware that we need to comply to LTN 120 in terms of the cycling facilities. What Councillor Bolt fails to mention is that there's a number of different types of cyclists. There's the leisure cyclists, the off-road cyclists, the professional cyclists, as I would call them, and we need to cater for all. And so some of the routes that we are choosing to use, which is the one on the graphic of Oak Road, I would say that's the leisure cyclist, to be perfectly honest about it. Anybody who is wanting to use roads more professionally will have those facilities and will stay on the road anyway. So that off-road solution is for the leisure cyclist. Councillor Bolt also questions whether we've tied that up in terms of
Sorry, Chair, can I
connectivity.
just to correct,
And
I am a qualified cycle instructor to national cycle standards, and I wouldn't advise anybody, be they leisure, pleasure, or as Keith says, a professional, and the number of professional cyclists in Kirklees, I think, is 3 at the moment, to use that. You're putting, do the risk assessment. If you've got to swerve off the road onto a facility and back on the road, if you are a more nervous cyclist, you're going to stay where you feel safer. And obviously, bikeability cycle training says you take a positive position on the road and you use that, and you don't keep swapping and changing, because that attracts more risks, Keith.
Councillor Bolt, I totally agree with you. And I was going to go on to say that we will be supplying and providing facilities to get you onto the cycle routes. So we'll be providing means of getting across the road in terms of signal junctions. So we'll make them cycling friendly to get people from one side to the other. Councillor Bolt raised the question of whether at the top of Oak Road, how you can connect onto Bradley Road. Well, the plans do show, again, a shared facility to get you from one side of the road to the other for those cyclists who are not conversant with the road and want to use the more safer route, let's say, or the route that they feel safer with. And he also said and asked the question, is there connectivity to other initiatives, namely the Brighouse to Bradley? And the answer to that question is that the material that we've just shown you is the consultation material that we use for the Cooper Bridge scheme to Bradley. We didn't want to confuse the general public in terms of the Bradley to Brighouse, which is a separate scheme, but the Bradley to Brighouse does pick up from where Bradley finishes at the end of top of Oak Road, and we use Upper Quarry Road to access the route into and out of Brighouse in terms of the Bradley to Brighouse. Again, as I say, we didn't want to show that because we would only confuse members of the public in terms of 2 consultations running at one, but there is interdependency between the 2. In terms of Marston's, yes, I like certainly the chicken from Marston's. It would be inappropriate, I think, to talk about the discussions we're having with Marston's in terms of the business, but discussions and lengthy discussions are taking place with that business, and in fact, all affected businesses, which you would expect us to do. So yes, we're talking to businesses. Yes, we've talked to Marston's. Yes, though we haven't concluded anything with Marston's at this moment in time, but we are talking to businesses. In terms of Cooper Bridge, and we mentioned Cooper Bridge in terms of the area around Cooper Bridge. We are trying to maximise capacity at Cooper Bridge, but we are trying to also provide cycling and walking facilities that are in keeping with that locality as well. In terms of the larger scheme that Councillor Bolt does raise, very interesting point. Yes, we have looked at a scheme that took the Relief Road up to from Bradley to the motorway intersection to connect into that large roundabout at the motorway intersection. It does raise also the point where it would have to go past the curtilage of the tip, and the amount of stuff in that tip, really, it would actually be astronomical costs involved in terms of routing a road at the curtilage of that tip because of the environmental works we'd need to do to protect the leakage, etc., from the slippage from the tip. So we have looked at that scheme. It was costed well in excess of £100 million. In fact, top of my head says £120 million. So, but on that basis, it was discounted. But Councillor Bolt does raise a good question: is that would be a good scheme, but it's totally unaffordable within this budget envelope.
Okay, thank you very much, Keith. I'm going to just bring in Councillor Smage, and then I'll bring in Councillor Taylor. Councillor Smage.
Thanks ever so much. You just got a couple of points, questions that I want to ask actually. In your documentation, I don't see a lot about emphasis on modal shift, I think is the technical terms. And so I'd like to understand, please, how, as part of this scheme, you are encouraging modal shift, because you're talking about an increase in traffic over coming years, and you're putting, cycleways and pedestrian ways in and things like this, but not about encouraging people, to change the way they travel. So I've not heard anything about buses, for instance, and things like this at this moment in time. On air quality, the Bradley Cooper Bridge area is a air quality management zone, is it not? So I would have thought, as this scheme is part of that action plan on air quality, that there would be an assessment needed, especially for your business case, as to how you are expecting the reductions in air quality to happen as far as the scheme is concerned, and what assessments have been done as to potential increases for air quality for any of the surrounding areas to the junctions that are being upgraded, including Oak Road. And I would have thought that work surely is available, because as part of your action plan, you are talking about a redistribution of vehicles on the network, as well as reducing queuing times and increased traffic flows. And also, I'd like to ask as well about the heavy goods vehicles. I don't think that's been addressed, the heavy goods vehicles travelling on roads not necessarily built for heavy goods vehicles. What traffic flows are you expecting from them, and how are you going to reduce any impact? Because heavy goods vehicles go where sat navs take them, and disregard signs usually. So how are you going to cope with heavy goods movements? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Major. We've got Keith's hand up. I mean, just on that point on HGVs, I do think it's an important one, particularly for Oak Road. And they're already affected by HGV use on that road as well. And you know, some of the residents have raised issues around the impact that has on their homes and vibrations. And obviously, you've talked about in the report and also in ward member briefings about looking at what you can do about HGV usage on Oak Road. But you know, how can that actually be minimised on Oak Road, given the fact what Councillor Major is saying? If you know, if a sat nav wants to send it there, they'll go there. If they're used to travelling that way, they'll still go there. So yeah, if you're all right to come back on those points, Keith.
Thank you. I'll deal with Councillor Major's points first, and then I'll go on to the Oak Road question, because I think I need to wrap up the Oak Road situation. And thank you, Chair, for that question. So in terms of modal shift, Councillor Major raises a good point. Yes, we want to encourage modal shift. If by way of an example, I'm expecting, as part of the Bradley housing allocation, a really good transport assessment that encourages modal shift and those houses to be used in a sustainable way in terms of the travel to and from. So I would expect, as part of the travel assessment and transport assessment, as part of that housing submission for the full 2,000 houses, I would expect the use of cycling and walking to be at the forefront of what their proposals would be in terms of their travelling to work and travelling to and from their destination and origin. So that would be a good way to start the modal shift example. Examples are that if we put infrastructure in, people will start to think about how they do their travelling. So obviously, if the person living in the Bradley housing allocation lives somewhere on the motorway intersection, then unlikely they're going to be travelling anyway other than car. But we can actually encourage them to use rail. So that connection of car to rail would be part of the transport assessment for the Bradley allocation. If we put cycling and walking facilities in, people will use them. Yes, numbers are low at the moment, but we need to encourage growth. How do we encourage growth? Well, it's by education. So as part of this, policy that the council will need to develop is a much more thing around education. It needs to educate people to say, here's the cycling offer. Here's what's available. These are the means of the final mile travel from your origin to your destination. Please consider these alternative modes of transport. It's not going to be easy, but I think it is part of the overall package. So I think we do need to encourage modal change much more than we do at this moment in time, and part of the package will include that. In terms of air quality, if I can answer some of the questions on that. we are seeking to move traffic in a much without stationary flow. So many people have said, you know, there's stationary traffic on Cooper Bridge in terms of the A644. There's existing delays at the Bradley Junction on Combridge Road, Leeds Road, where housing is present. We will want to move traffic much more freely. That frees up air quality. We'll use some intelligent traffic signalling as well. Traffic signalling, so one of the questions was, are we going to eliminate or try to reduce the impact of HGVs going through those junctions in terms of air quality? We have some intelligent modelling to pick up long vehicles, heavy goods vehicles, buses, where we'll use the technology that's available now in terms of video imaging to actually alter the traffic signals to better coordinate for those types of vehicles. So giving you an example of that, in terms of Oak Road, in terms of HGVs, yes, we want to limit the amount of HGVs that use Oak Road. Bearing in mind, HGVs use Oak Road at this moment in time to turn left onto Oak Road, to turn right onto Bradley, to get onto Combridge, because that right turn is banned at this moment in time. What we'll try to do in terms of Oak Road by way of mitigations, we'll look at 20-mile-an-hour zone in terms of Oak Road. We'll look at a series of humps, lumps and bumps on Oak Road to try to reduce traffic speeds as much as possible and keeping to that 20 mile an hour. We'll look to limit and put a weight limit on Oak Road in terms of making the HGVs that do not necessarily need to use Oak Road an alternative means of accessing where their destination is. And we'll also consider a residents only parking area on Oak Road to mitigate the issues that was raised earlier in terms of parking on both sides of Oak Road and limiting the amount of space that's available. And so we'd seek to implement a residents parking area. It's important to note, though, at Oak Road, what we are doing is a 7.5 metre width highway at the moment, two-way. We are going to make it one way with a 5 metre width. We are going to move it away from the houses. That does help air quality. As David explained, though, we have run modelling on air quality at this moment in time. It tends to say that there is little or no difference. In fact, there's a change. There's an improvement to air quality in terms of the number of houses that are collective into that air quality issue, which has been raised in terms of the air quality action zone. So we are moving vehicles away from the houses. It does help. We are moving vehicles better. It does help. We are decongesting the area. It does help air quality. So that's the sort of improvements we are looking at, mitigations against Oak Road. But I can then take questions or give you an example of why we're using Oak Road. Hopefully, in the document pack, we've explained why we need to use Oak Road. But it's simply this. It is a road that's used more strategically at this moment in time. We can't get away from the fact that it is a used road at this moment in time, but we're wanting to use it in a different way. The reason we want to use it in a different way is if you look at the Bradley Crossroads, as is at this moment in time, what a transport and traffic engineer looks for in terms of improving the capacity at that junction, to maximise the capacity at that junction to meet the objectives of the scheme. He has a number of things that he can look at. One of the things he can look at as an alternative layout, and I think I've explained the alternative layouts that we've looked at. Another option we can look at is removing some of the conflicts at the junction, and that's a technical term. So if members are aware at this moment in time, as you're coming outbound on the A62 Leeds Road, the right turn to Combridge Road is banned at this moment in time. And the diversion of that route is up Oak Road, Bradley Road and across. The reason that was done 15 years ago, way before my time, was two reasons. It was to increase the capacity of that junction for the then traffic. And it was also done to reduce an accident situation from right turners crossing across the 2-3 lanes coming inbound on Leeds Road. So that is another tool in the box. The third tool in the box that a traffic engineer has is maximising the amount of highway space that's available. So we are looking to widen Combridge Road as part of this scheme into the Mamas and Papas car parked area. And again, that's one of the businesses we have consulted with and talked to. We are looking to widen Combridge Road to improve the capacity of the output and throughput from Combridge Road. We are looking to widen the road between Oak Road and Bradley in terms of maximizing the throughput on the A62 Leeds Road. But coming back to the original point is, can we remove one further movement from that junction to give that spare capacity that we require, or the extra capacity require? If you take the right turn onto Bradley at this moment in time, for example, and I'm going to throw a number out there, but if that right turn needs 20 seconds green time for that right turn to happen onto Bradley, and then by removing that, it no longer requires that 20 seconds green time at the Bradley junction. That same green time then can be reallocated to one of the other legs of the junction that is experiencing the extra demand. If you move it onto Oak Road, that is a displaced right turn. So if you were to reallocate that 20 seconds, by example, at Bradley, and to give it to, let's say, Bradley, where the increased housing allocations will inevitably increase traffic going forward. And as I say, we've modelled it to 2041. That is a way we can then reallocate that green time onto Bradley to get a better throughput of the junction from Bradley onto Leeds Road. So it is an essential part of the scheme. In terms of numbers, it is a transport model. The transport model is predicting in 2041 a reduced amount of traffic turning right onto Oak Road to be displaced over the wider network. So the model works in this way. In 2041, it looks for routings dependent upon origin destination that the travel time is more beneficial to the user. So for example, if the right turn is taking place at this moment in time from Leeds Road onto Bradley, and needs to access the 641 Bradford Road, the model is predicting more people will step on the motorway to access the 641. It won't come onto Leeds Road. And that's what the model is predicting. It's predicting, or trying to predict in 2041, based on the future flow growth scenarios, the use of the network. And it's predicting that the right turn that you see at this moment in time, turning from Leeds Road onto Bradley, is slightly reduced once we put the scheme in and that right turn happens at Oak Road. Hopefully I've explained it. There's probably a better explanation in terms of the written context within from page 33 onwards. You probably need to read that in detail, and then any further questions I can answer accordingly, whether in this meeting or afterwards.
Okay, thank you. I think, I don't know if you already answered this, but do we know how much time will be saved by the changes in lights, in the changes of the lighting system?
Yeah, we are quoting circa 1 minute travel time benefits per vehicle for all the vehicles that's on the network within that locality within the peak periods that have been modelled. So AM peak, PM peak, and an interpeak.
Okay.
So it's multiples of thousands of vehicles. I haven't got the facts and figures in front of me, but it will be multiples of 1,000 vehicles, all saving a minute per day, per week, per month, per year.
Okay. And I know you've looked at a number of schemes. I think when we last spoke, you said you'd looked at nearly 38 viabilities for Cooper, for some sort of scheme around Cooper Bridge, and I can't remember if this was already covered, but has there like a dedicated left turn at the junction being considered instead of Oak Road?
Do you mean a dedicated right turn at the junction? So Bradley right turn.
Probably right. Yeah.
Bradley Leeds Road to Bradley. Yes, it has. Yes, and basically what we've assessed is that the congestion increases at Bradley, and it doesn't maximise the throughput. So maintaining the right turn onto Bradley is not as good a scheme as what we're presenting in terms of BCR. The BCR will slightly reduce, but the amount of congestions and air quality issues increase because we're not handling it sufficiently well at Bradley. And for the reasons I explained earlier, there's a knock-on effect to the other arms of the junction.
Okay. All right. I'm going to start rounding things up because we're getting close to 3 o'clock. I just want to check first, Councillor Taylor, you had your hand up and you've taken your hand down now, so I just want to check, did you still have a question, some questions that you wanted to ask? And then I'll come to Councillor Ball.
I've just forgotten to take it back down again after I asked my question.
All right, thank you. And Councillor Bolt?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to ask the question, A62 capital reconstruction between Cooper Bridge and Combe Bridge, including the drainage to rectify that which a landowner has caused. When is it starting? When's it finishing? And how much is it costing? Because again, the point that's got to be borne in mind, Chair, is to the public, they will see we're starting this, is it 2024? I think that it's in the report. If this starts on site within a short space of time after the tarmac's gone down on the other scheme, the public will see that as a waste of public money. Modal shift's been addressed. That was something, Chair, that I did mention earlier on. I've looked. The relevant agreement is the carbon reduction pathway, which has been agreed at West Yorkshire level, which Kirklees have signed up to. So we are committed through the Cabinet by 2038 to reducing private car travel by 21%. So surely highways plans should show a reduction in private car travel. So, I mean, we're building wider roads, but we're producing nearly a quarter of a reduction. And something that was just said then, an HGV, they're considering an HGV ban on Oak Road, which will be welcome, Chair, but bearing in mind that Kirklees are creating the need for HGVs to go on Oak Road if you're removing the right turn up Bradley. So serving the shops and things like that, there's a new sort of mini supermarket type thing partway up in the old petrol station. There's Asda up at Fixby. So you're either having to route HGVs, and you can't just do Oak Road because, as we heard when we were on site, what about going through Brooklands and through the estate, Chair? If you put an HGV ban on Oak Road, SatNav says to take your next right round Brooklands. Do they, and again, air quality. If officers are saying that HGVs were coming out of Cooper Bridge, they may have been delivering in Murfield or to the mini supermarket at near Lower Quarry Road at the filling station, have they got to go right into the middle of Huddersfield to come back up to Asda and other places? Bearing in mind the shortage of HGV drivers, the fact that they are limited in driving time, it's got to be practical. This is something that Kirklees are creating. They have a duty to look at the practical resolution of it. And if they believe that an HGV ban on Oak Road will resolve it without looking at an area-wide solution, I think that I have misgivings about that. So when is the cap recon on the Cooper Bridge to Combe Bridge, and how much is it costing, please?
Okay, Keith, did you want to come back on that? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the capital reconstruction of the A62, we are speaking to our colleagues who are in the maintenance element of highways in terms of making sure those interdependencies are taken into consideration. And I agree with Martin in terms of we won't want to be putting tarmac down to rip it up in a few years later. So those conversations are taking place at this moment in time because we do not want to be wasting public money anywhere. So yeah, you have my understanding that we'll do that. In terms of the Oak Road, can I just come back to the Oak Road and clarify what I did say, which is that we'll be looking to implement an HGV weight limit ban. So we need to work through this proposal at this moment in time because it raises a good point where we do need to obviously maintain food deliveries to houses that are on Oak Road at present. There is some local businesses that will need some deliveries, so we need to work through those proposals because it won't be a total HGV ban because of the explanation of what Martin's given at the moment in time. We don't want to reroute HGVs all over the place, so we'll be looking to limit the amount of HGVs on Oak Road, and we'll certainly work through those issues. In terms of the climate change and the 21%, yes, that's a stated aim. But what I will also say is that this model is based on current DFT guidance in terms of modelled flows to the period of 2041. So we might be quoting things like 21%, but the DFT, and we need to work with the DFT in terms of their flow analysis and predictions going forward. We are using their flow analysis in terms of increased flows year on year, and they have not changed their view on that at this moment in time. We need to use what the DFT are saying in terms of flows and the flow growths year on year, because everything's assessed via DFT guidance and the WebTag guidance and all the regulatory guidance that we need to go through, which is a national standard. So, and will be checked out by the Combined Authority with the business case. So, yes, I do take Martin's point, but we've used DFT flow analysis and flow growth within our modelled predictions thus far.
Okay, thank you. And David, did you want to come in there? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And it's just to add to what Keith was saying in response to Councillor Bolt's points around carbon reduction pathways and the 21% reduction by 2038. I would say, in addition to what Keith said, this scheme, we need to think about the wider transport investment as well. And Councillor Smage talked about modal shift and getting people onto other parts of the transport network, some of which isn't there at the present time. So West Yorkshire Combined Authority working with us are promoting schemes like the Mass Transit Scheme. They're also promoting and working with us with Network Rail around the Transpennine upgrade for the rail arrangements, as Councillor Bolt's aware, but also improving bus transport. Those the first two elements, this scheme can't deal with, and it relies, as do the council's commitments around 2038, rely on a package of measures rather than just looking at individual schemes. Now, individual schemes rightly have to do what they can to minimise carbon contributions, but this scheme isn't designed to address the 2038 question on its own. But it does point towards some positives. So if we are able to improve those journey times, as Keith has said, that improves the bus travel arrangements and ensures that more people in the fullness of time will choose bus transport because they know that their bus transportation is going to be more reliable. And that's one of the things that we've found around the country that puts people off bus transportation, as well as the cost of it, is the lack of reliability if you're trying to rely on that as a commuter form of transport. So this scheme does help in that regard, and as we've said, it does help with regards to providing people with safe access arrangements for cycle transportation, as well as pedestrian routes in and around this scheme. But I just wanted to make the point that this scheme cannot address all of the issues for 2038 on its own.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more questions, I'm going to round everything up. I think we've had everyone. So thank you to members for all their questions, and thank you to officers also for your detailed responses, which were very helpful indeed. Obviously, there's been some key points raised here. I'll just try and summarise some of the big points that were made. Obviously, you know, whatever anyone wants to say on this, there are key concerns for residents on Oak Road, and it is going to have a huge impact on those residents. Clearly, this is a big strategic scheme, but there's a particular impact on residents of Oak Road. You know, I say this as ward council as well. You know, it is very important that we understand the concerns from residents and that we listen and respond to those concerns. And I think most panel members would agree that should be one of the recommendations for Cabinet. They must listen to those concerns, because at the moment they feel this is a larger scheme, you know, which has strategic benefit, but they're not necessarily seeing that locally. So I think that's very, very important that we understand the concerns that are being raised, and we properly listen to those. There were some points made about the measurables of the scheme and clear checkpoints on achievements, and making sure that those measurables are clear, and clear commitments are set out in terms of those measures and achievements that are going to be set out for the scheme. There's been points made about ward consultation and making sure that members are clearly a consultant, but also kept up to date as well. And you know, obviously, Ashbrow is particularly impacted, but Councillor Botts mentioned Murfield. Also, parts of Dalton might be impacted by this scheme as well, given Leeds Road impact as well. So we must make sure the relevant ward councils are briefed as well. The points have been made about modal shift, and it is important overall. Obviously, as you've mentioned, David, this one scheme isn't going to change Kirklees' achievements on climate change on itself, but this is a very big, important scheme which we all recognise, and it's important that the points around our commitments around climate change are seriously factored into this scheme and properly analysed as well. Councillor Taylor also made a point about the financials of the scheme. So if we can we please get the amount that has been, I think you said that has already been committed or spent on the scheme as well. So if we can have that information for the panel by the, I know Councillor Idale wanted us to set some time limits on this. So if we are able to get that information before you go to Cabinet with your report, which I think is towards the end of September. So if we could get the information before then, that would be very helpful. I'm just having a quick look to see if we've covered most of the points, which I think we have, but Councillor Bolt's got his hand up, so I'll just bring him in quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for that. I mean, noticing the on page 20, item 2, it says we're invited to know the contents and endorse the next steps. What I'm hearing today, I don't think I can endorse at the moment. In addition to what you said, Chair, I'd like to say that certainly myself and colleagues will say whether they agree. I have grave reservations about whether this will achieve the objectives, because myself, Robert and others have talked about needing greater clarity on the measurable outcomes. John's talked about the finances, and I believe also there is a standing council resolution that this scheme should also show the impact on the B6118 Liley Lane going up to Flockton. That's got to be factored into, that was a council resolution, so therefore should be included. And I certainly didn't get comfort about what the impact was going to be on Oak Road from the HGVs. Is it an HGV ban or isn't? Because either you ban the HGVs in totality or you do an access only ban, and you can't do an access only ban. I mean, obviously that would mean no HGVs going through at all, because there's nothing on there other than removals and things to serve. So I didn't get the clarity on what was being done to protect those people from HGV movements and things. And yeah, the costings for some of the things as well, as you said, that we need. So I don't think at this time I can fully endorse it. I would thank everybody for the contribution. And hopefully before it goes to Cabinet, the report will have been improved to write down some of the things that certainly I've got grave concerns about, and colleagues will say whether they share them or not. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So obviously the Cabinet is the decision maker on this scheme overall. We're making some recommendations, which I've hopefully summarised them. We'll get those recommendations over to officers and the Cabinet member. And obviously it would be helpful if we can get the information back on that in terms of the recommendations that we're making and what Cabinet's thoughts are on those. They are the final decision maker. And just on that point, Councillor McBride, do you want to say any final points?
No, I think it's been a very useful meeting. I think issues have been explored, some of which will be taken further. I think there'll be some room for further compromise. And I do believe there's been a serious attempt by your committee, and hopefully it will be extended further, to address the real concerns of the people who live on Oak Road. And I think overall, there's no doubt that the scheme is beneficial. It's a plus. But there are localities that do not appear to be benefited. I think some of their worst features have been offset, but I think it needs to go further than that. And this is the whole function of scrutiny, is to explore where those problems are and how we can best address the problems that have been highlighted.
Absolutely, thank you. And I should say, obviously, our recommendations should be going to cabinet as well as the officers, so they are able to see them. Councillor Taylor, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I've just been reflecting on what Councillor Bolt said, and I must confess I'm a little uncomfortable with the wording of the recommendation around endorsing progress, because that suggests we're happy. And I think we have reservations, and I think those are matters which would have to be addressed before we could say we were happy and able to endorse this. So sure. I would be more than happy that we noted the contents of the report. We've made comments on it. At the end of the day, this is a cabinet decision. It's not our decision. And I don't think we should be taking a view at this point in time on whether we are happy to recommend progress or not. So I'd want to alter the wording for the resolution in terms of what this committee has done. We have scrutinised, we have raised issues, we have listened to particularly the local resident and the local members' concerns. We've asked questions. It's now for officers and cabinet to respond to that. So I just think we need to be careful about the wording that is used here. I would find language really important. And I think the way this is worded, it suggests we're happy that progress be made. And I think we have questions still unanswered. Thank you, Chair. Yeah,
sure. I mean, sure. I think that's a very fair point. So I think we can say that, you know, we note it, and you know, several comments and have been raised, and recommendations from the panel will go to cabinet. So yeah, I think we do it like that. That's fair enough, and I see everyone's nodding, so that's great. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. So panel members, don't go yet because we've got to go over the work programme. But thank you to everybody else for joining us. Really appreciate everyone's contributions. And, you know, it was a good debate from everyone. So thank you, everyone, for the way you responded as well. So thanks a lot. And those who are not panel members can leave now if they so wish. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We're just going to quickly move on to the work programme, members. We have mentioned at our previous meetings that we have got a very heavy agenda on economies and neighbourhood. So we have added an additional meeting on the 7th of September, which you'll have recently received a meeting invite for, and we'll be covering the Cultural Heart Regeneration Programme, and also the winter maintenance programme the council run. So a review on that as well. Is there any further points that members want to make? We are looking to bring forward the update on Kirklees homes and neighbourhood as well. So we'll be having that slightly earlier as well. Thank you. Councillor Idale.
Yes, could we have the papers or details of the Cultural Heart fairly soon, please, because I don't know what Cultural Heart is.
Yes, we will get the papers to you. They do normally come 7 days in advance, Councillor Idale. So
yes, I appreciate that. But if you've already previously talked about the Cultural Heart,
no,
you haven't.
No, not here. We haven't. I think some you know,
it's been touched on as part of the blueprint, Rob, but that's probably about as far as it's gone.
Yeah. It's just that new member trying to get up to speed more than anything else. If there's any papers that I could have to give me a chance of catching up, I'd be most appreciated, please.
All right, I'll see if there's anything.
What if there is? If there is anything, yeah. Thank you.
If there's anything available, we can get. David, did you want to come in there?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't know whether you wanted me to stay for this bit of the discussion, but there's a cabinet report, isn't there, that went in June that we can send, or Gunnar's colleagues can send on to Councillor Idale, so he can have a look at the background to Cultural Heart. And the purpose of this scrutiny is that it sits in between when that cabinet report went in June and when the next cabinet report for what we call Gateway 1 it goes in November. So when I spoke to Councillor Opal and Councillor Smage, we'd agreed that it's best that the timing of these reports are really important, so that you can look backwards as well as looking forwards. That's the idea of it anyway.
Yeah. So that there are some papers that will you can send to me to catch up, so I can make a contribution to the meetings. Thank you.
Of course, and as David's mentioned there, there's the cabinet briefing, so we'll get that. The cabinet paper, sorry, that went in June, so we'll get that to you. Okay, Councillor.
If you will, please. Thank you.
Of course, no problem. Is there any other questions? Councillor Taylor?
Doing my usual that I spotted a typo.
Oh, yeah, sure.
On the very, very back page, on the items not yet scheduled, we've got Huddersfield Market not scheduled twice. So we're not
on the
talking
back page, did you say?
The very, very back. Items not scheduled.
Oh yes, we have. You're right. Yes, we'll remove that.
If I don't find something.
We do it just for you, really. So there you go. You've spotted it. You'll get a prize later. So well done. Okay, yes, we'll take that out. Thank you very much for that. Okay, members, if there's nothing else. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And thank you for all your contributions.
Thank you very much, indeed.
Thank you.